and chanting the praises. The feminine voice is very strong. It's very important. And we know this, that Guru Nanak Sahib extolled the woman in a very significant way, putting her front and center in society. So Justine Kaur will take the next 10 minutes in talking about the feminine voice in Gurbani. As we continue Gavani.
My name is Justine Kaur, and I'm excited to be here. Thank you. Closer? Okay, thank you. So I wanted to talk a little bit about a specific body that has been on my mind a lot lately. It's one that we've worked with as part of my work as a researcher on the Guru Granth Sahib project, and it's one that's stuck with me for the last year. So I wanted to talk today about Kujaji Bani, which was revealed by Guru Nanak Sahib. This Bani in particular has completely shifted my understanding both of what is contained within it and also of how it can guide us in our lives as seekers, no matter what gender we are. So I thought I'd take you through it, show you how my understanding of the Bani and its metaphors and symbols and context has shifted as I've become more engaged with it, and also sort of show you what it has taught me about the female voice or the feminine voice and the value of the vulnerability of the seeker as the bride of the divine spouse, God. So Guru Nanak Sahib sets his composition in the context of specific terms commonly used to refer to a bride who doesn't know the way or doesn't have the proper skills or the proper virtues. And that's what we call the Kujaji. And then there's also this additional use of terms like the Hagen and Suhagen, the unfortunate bride who has lost the connection with her spouse, the Hagen, and the fortunate bride who is connected. Guru Nanak takes these terms and uses them in the broader context of the union between the human seeker, the bride, and the divine, the spouse, God. Kujaji is revealed in Rag Suhi, a rag of great enthusiasm, love, and devotion. By speaking through this perspective, Guru Nanak Sahib is identifying with the Kujaji, the ungraceful bride who does not know the way. The Kujaji feels disconnected from the spouse. The Guru adopts the female voice of this ungraceful seeker, and it is through this voice that we are guided in how to reflect on our own flaws, the ways that we might fall short in our journeys, the ways that we are not always virtuous. We can tell the truth about our current conditions because we see the Kujaji tell the truth about hers. We can understand how to lovingly long for connection even as we are full of faults and immersed in the pain of separation because we watch the Kujaji long, even in her pain. We understand how to seek grace because we watch the Kujaji seek grace. The Bani begins with a pretty clear sort of reflection on her own journey. The Kujaji says, I am Kujaji. I have plentiful faults. How do I go to enjoy the union with the divine husband? And each line ends with Jio. There are fortunate human brides, each one better than the other. Who even knows my name? Jio. Those female friends who have enjoyed union with the divine husband, it is as if they are sitting under the shade of the mango trees, Jio. But I know not how to acquire those virtues of those female friends. On which being do I lay blame, Jio? So that initial introspection and honesty about her own state and her own condition is one that I think is hard for us to do sometimes. We don't necessarily want to admit how we are doing on our path, where we feel we are at, the ways in which we feel we are flawed. She also asks this rhetorical question, who can I blame? If I'm not connected with you, who can I blame? But really what's being said there is, I understand that I'm the one to blame. I haven't done sort of the inculcating of these virtues, the work of becoming a virtue-full person. And she asks for grace because she sees those sahagins, those connected and fortunate seekers, sitting in the shade of the mango tree, which means that they are cool, their burning or their longing has been satiated. So I've been thinking a lot about the repetition of Geo in this bani. It's one that we've sort of struggled with translating because Geo in this bani is not in the vocative case, so it's not, we can't say that it's addressing a specific person, but it's there, and it's there for a reason. And so the conclusion that we can come to is that with each line, even as the Gujaji is saying something that might be a little bit blunt about her state, where she's admitting things that are hard to admit, that addition of Geo at the end softens the line and coats it in this kind of lovingness that propels the entire bani all the way through. And I've been thinking about it a lot as kind of a way to talk to ourselves too. When we're doing this introspection, which is hard and scary, and we're really examining what our relationship is with the God. Are we being gentle and compassionate and loving with ourselves even in those moments of reflection? So I wanted to just close with what I believe the Gujaji has taught me, and maybe what we can all take from this as we reflect a little bit more on the feminine voice in Bani. So due to her self-realized shortcomings, the Gujaji feels she is unworthy and therefore not pleasing to the divine, despite seeking to be. This is an internal reflection, and I really want to stress that because I think we as humans tend to place our sort of judgments outward, but this is fully an internal thing that she's doing. She's sitting down and thinking about only her journey. So she's not being externally condemned by other people because of a perceived lack of virtues. She's being honest with herself about what she feels she has. She's having these realizations about herself and her relationship with the Gungar because she has taken that step to reflect. And I've thought a lot about the bravery in that and the vulnerability in that and how many of us can really sit with ourselves that long and think about our own journeys and our own relationships with the Gungar as the spouse. She lovingly hungers for connection. She sees those truth-oriented friends who are connected, and she longs to be like them. She asks for the divine spouse to grace her with a moment of union. She is brave in her vulnerability and loving in her seeking. Guru Nanak Sahib identifies with this Gujaji, who is so in love that she is able to live in separation and in pain patiently. What helps tide the Gujaji over is being colored in the grace that she asks her spouse for. She does not wallow in self-pity about why she is ungraceful, but instead accepts the reality of her state. She humbly submits. She asks how to connect deeply instead of why she does not feel connected. And it is not that she is inherently virtuous or bad, or that she has somehow turned her back on her spouse, abandoning union altogether. It is instead that despite her attempts to connect, there is not that intimacy present that she observes between the spouse and the fortunate seekers. This is due to an ungraceful execution, a not knowing. So I would venture to say, and we can argue about it later if you want to find me after this, but I would venture to say that we are all the Gujaji, regardless of how we identify. So many of us feel that we are unworthy of connection with a Gungar. We feel that we have not done enough, or that we haven't done things the correct way, or spent enough time. We let other people tell us that we are not worthy. We let other people tell us what our status is. We tend to ask why we are not connected instead of how to connect. We tend to fixate on what we have done wrong instead of moving into longing for connection. The Guru's voice makes us comfortable with our own vulnerability while expressing our own longing and our own seeking. To see that longing so lovingly expressed in the female voice invites us to ask why that longing is not in us, or, if it is, how to continue longing in the way of the Gujaji, tapping into these elements that are within us all. The Guru invites us to be brave enough to be vulnerable like the Gujaji, compassionate with ourselves like the Gujaji, and devoted like the Gujaji. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
जी का खालसा वाहिगुरू जी की फतेह पहली गल ते असीं सारिआं नूं जी आਇਆਂ ਨੂੰ आखना है thank you so much for such a great turnout to the first Gurbani ਤੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਆਰਗੇਨਾਈਜ਼ਰਸ ਤਰਫੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਸੋਚਿਆ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਜਥੇ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਕੁਝ ਟੋਕਨ ਦੇਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਸੋ ਫਰਸਟ ਜਥਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਬੁਲਾਵਾਂਗੇ ਰਸਲੀਨ ਕੌਰ ਜੀ ਸਿਸਟਰ ਰਸਲੀਨ ਕੌਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਜਥਾ ਤੇ ਹੈਗਾ ਪਲੀਜ਼ ਕਮ ਰਸਲੀਨ ਕੌਰ ਹਾਂਜੀ Restling Kor, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਤੇ ਆਪਣਾ ਜੱਥਾ ਪਲੀਜ਼ ਆ ਜਾਓ ਜੇ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਜੱਥਾ ਇੱਥੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ that is okay ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਕੱਲੇ ਵੀ ਆ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ that's fine I know it's her siblings ਹਾਂਜੀ ਸੋ ਸਾਡੀ ਤਰਫੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਸੋਚਿਆ ਕਿ ਕਿਹੜੇ ਗਿਫਟਸ ਅਪਰੋਪਰੀਏਟ ਹੋਣਗੇ ਸੋ ਇੱਕ ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਸ਼ੇਅਰ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਜੱਸੀ ਭੈਣ ਜੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਸਪੀਕਰ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਕਿਤਾਬ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਤਰਫੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਦੇਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਦਾ ਨਾਮ ਹੈਗਾ ਹੋਮ ਆਫ ਦ ਬਿਲਵਡ ਤੇ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇੰਟਰਸਟਿਡ ਹੋ ਕਿ ਪੜ੍ਹਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੋ ਕਿਤਾਬ ਉਹ ਬਾਹਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਰੱਖੀਏ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪੜ੍ਹ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ ਆਪੇ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਖੁਦ ਪਰਚੇਸ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ ਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਮੈਂ ਰਿਕੁਐਸਟ ਕਰਦੀ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਡਾਕਟਰ ਗੁਰਨਾਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਵੀ ਆ ਜਾਣ ਤੇ ਬੇਬੇ ਨਾਨਕੀ ਇੰਸਟੀਚਿਊਟ ਆਫ ਸਿੱਖ ਸਟੱਡੀਜ਼ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੀਡੈਂਟ ਜੀ लीना कौर जी मजीद आंटी जी ते डॉक्टर प्रितपाल अंकल जी ते जत्थे नूं संबोधित करें प्लीज So I conclude करदा साडा morning half of Gurbani ਦਾ program. So ਹੁਣ ਕੀ ਹੋਏਗਾ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ please ਬਾਹਰ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਲੰਗਰ ਛਕ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ but just know ਕਿ ਥੋੜੀ ਦੇਰ ਬਾਅਦ ਅਸੀਂ workshop ਵੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੈ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ labels ਹੈਗੇ ਨੇ ਬਾਹਰ it would be room 103 ਜਿਹੜੀ ਲੰਗਰ building ਦੇ the top ਕਮਰਾ and then ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਅਸੀਂ art gallery ਵੀ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ artists ਇੱਥੇ ਆਏ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਕੋਲ ਸਿਰਫ ਐਵਰੀ ਪੇਂਟਿੰਗਸ ਨਹੀਂ ਨੇ ਹੋਰ ਸਿੱਖ ਪੇਂਟਿੰਗਸ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਏ ਨੇ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਸਕੋ ਮੇਬੀ ਖਰੀਦ ਸਕੋ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਸਕੋ ਸੋ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਹੋਏਗਾ ਇਸ ਸਮੇਂ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ ਜੀ